Take back Chicago!
So we're in the middle of this like global austerity agenda, and the local, from the federal government down to our local politicians are taken away. First it was the plan for transformation with public housing, and then it turned into Renaissance 2010 with the public schools. And it's just these sequential attacks on services for working people that are being taken away from us. And you find that really politicians from both parties are advancing this agenda.
For far too long, we've seen a corporate agenda that has worked to destroy public education. At the hands of Rahm Emanuel and the politicians that are linked to him, there's a new day in Chicago that no longer are we going to allow the corporate groups to dictate what our city looks like. And far too long, they have gotten away with shutting down our clinics, raising our rent, foreclosing upon our homes, robbing us of wages that we can't live off of. For far too long, we've seen our safety net auction off, piece by piece, by greedy corporations and those that are tied to the corporate elite. We need to have a say in the decision-making process that affects our schools, that affects our communities, that affects our neighborhoods. It's time to take Chicago back one block at a time, one house at a time. Let's go, Chicago. Let's take it back.
So we had a really successful grassroots campaign that centered around mass demonstrations, town hall meetings, raising the level of political education understanding throughout the city. That only was able to get us so far. It's now necessary for us to engage in electoral politics. Rahm Emanuel, those who are linked to him, other members of the Democratic Party are bulldozing us with corporate education reform. We need to take political power to actually put a stop to it. And how we do that has been something for our movement to grapple with.
From, Arne Duncan, who inaugurated the Renaissance 2010 plan here in Chicago, for 10 years there were school closures after school closures after school closures. Arne Duncan took his project national as Obama's Secretary of Education, and with the race to the top, legislation has really forwarded this agenda of school privatization, school closures and turnarounds, standardized tests being used as a basis to hire, and evaluate teachers all over the country. After 10 years of Renaissance 2010, where they're shutting down, 10 to 20 schools every year, then Rahm Emanuel comes in, President Obama's right-hand man, straight from Washington, comes back to Chicago and closes 50 schools in a historic school closures. Never before have we seen that many school closures anywhere in the United States. But it was, the months of hearings. There were just hundreds of hearings every week for weeks on end, and a lot of these hearings brought out thousands of parents in neighborhoods all over the city. The outcry was remarkable that no, we can't sustain this. We need these schools. These kids are important. Don't take our schools away. And the city basically said, what you guys are saying doesn't matter. These schools are shutting down, and all the fight you've put up, we haven't heard. Barbara Byrd Bennett said in her release, we have, we have listened to you, we have heard your cries, and we think that the city of Chicago agrees with us that these schools need to go. The teachers union led a 3-day march through the west side, the south side, that converged downtown, and it was a remarkable effort. There were stops along the way at all the schools that were closing, and yeah, the president of the teachers union, Karen Lewis, said that Rahm, you're closing these schools, but look out, basically, because we're going to register 200,000 voters. And that's going to be our response to this. We have not succeeded in stopping these school closures, though we have tried. There have been umpteen hearings. There have been hundreds and thousands of hearings, and people out crying out against your reckless and dangerous plan for Chicago students that's racist and unfair. But we're not going to take it lying down. We're going to get back to you through the ballot box.
Those of you who think you cannot make a difference, I will tell you now, we will register 250,000 people who will not be voting for that man that's there on the 5th floor. If he likes Washington so much, let's help him go back.
And that's when I think the movement really turned from, first it was at the point of production, it was the fight for the contract, then it was the fight against austerity, and then you move into a third stage, which is now the fight to take power in Chicago.
My name is Amisha Patel, and I'm Executive Director of Grassroots Collaborative. Welcome to Take Back Chicago!
Take Back Chicago was great. It was great to see thousands of activists from across the city come together and all agree that there's a set of issues that we need to fight around together in Chicago. Higher wages, affordable housing, access to health care, and quality public education.
So tonight we have over 30 organizations. Some of the buses are still arriving. We're moving forward though, and they're going to join us shortly. We have 35 community and labor organizations united to take back Chicago. We've come together today to build a movement for social and economic justice in our city. For too long, we, the people, the neighborhoods, the communities of Chicago have been ignored. Our tax dollars go to line the pockets of wealthy downtown developers, while our schools, mental health clinics, and libraries close. Our wages drop, and our rents skyrocket. We are a multiracial, multi-issue, citywide movement, and today we have a crowd of nearly 3,000 grassroots leaders united to take back Chicago.
I think that event brought a lot of different forces together, and I think that being able to take stock of our power is really good for our confidence. It's not something we get to experience all the time. And there were a lot of us in there, and we felt our agreement and we felt our collective, the potential for our collective power. That being said, there was also, I felt that there was yet more betrayal just within the event that has the potential to wake people up and say, these politicians are a joke. They don't really care about us. They just care about getting our votes so they can get in office another term. You had all the politicians that were on the stage saying, yes, we support equal access to health care and mental health services, yet they were the ones that voted in favor of the city council budget that ended up closing half of our city's mental health clinics, causing great harm to people that are the most vulnerable.
If they close my clinic, I will die, cried Helen Morley as she pleaded with Mayor Emanuel when he officiated over a celebration of Chicago's 175th anniversary. Coldly, he stared at her, looked, turned, and left the room. Her stressed heart gave out 2 months after the clinic closed, and she died. My name is Nadana Carter. I live with a mental illness, and I am grateful to be able to utilize one of the 6 remaining public mental health clinics managed by the Chicago Department of Health. I am a part of Chicago's mental health movement. In 2011, all 50 Chicago aldermen voted to close 6 of the 12 remaining public mental health clinics managed by Chicago Department of Public Health. They chose to give grants to private mental health providers instead. Three of the clinics closed by the city were in neighborhoods hit hard by skyrocketing violence on their streets. These clinics had a long history and expertise in helping people cope with loss and trauma from violence.
So it's like you're saying one thing and you're doing the complete different thing. Why? Because you're a Democrat, because you represent developers and your campaign donors and you get voted in by us, the 99%. We can't have people that are conflicted, that have a conflict of interest representing us in the seats of city council. We need people that represent us only and can feed back into our social movements.
First, all my CPS students, stand up. Teachers, stand up. Parents, stand up. Aldermen, I want you to look into all the faces of our children out there and tell me, will you support the ordinance to declare and distribute a TIF surplus filed and presented at the July 24th council meeting by working to get it discharged from the community on rules and signing it if you haven't already? Please answer yes or no.
Yes or no? Oh, yes.
Co-sponsor, yes.
Yes. Signed it, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Co-sponsor, yes.
Yes. I'm a co-sponsor, yes.
Old news to me, we already tried, yes.
Signed it already, yes.
Now that the CTU is engaging in electoral politics, people are coming out of the woodwork and saying things that they wouldn't have said 2 years ago, or that they definitely won't say behind closed doors when they're speaking with whomever, Rahm Emanuel, or whomever are the people that are making decisions in our city council.
We're going to hear from Governor Quinn.
Thank you.
So Pat Quinn came to the Take Back Chicago rally. He came late, he showed up at the end as people were leaving. In fact, in the section I was in, when the MC at the front said, "Hold on, don't leave, Pat Quinn's coming," we all started laughing and we thought it was a joke. But he showed up and started talking.
Got to make sure we have everybody who has decent health care. That's what the Affordable Care Act's all about. That's what President Obama's fought for. We got to make sure we enroll everyone who's eligible to make sure they have decent health care. We also have to...
And we booed him because Pat Quinn wants to cut our pensions. And even though he's better than Bruce Rauner, the charter school mogul that's best friends with Rahm Emanuel, even though he's less bad compared to Bruce Rauner, he doesn't care about us insofar as, you know, we actually have demands for increased living standards. We can't take it anymore.
We also have to understand how important education is to jobs and to the future in Illinois. And we got to invest in our education from early childhood.
He wants our votes and he knows he's the lesser of two evils. The issue of pensions and cuts to pensions is a huge concern of all public sector employees across the state. And our best chance at getting a good deal currently is Pat Quinn. And he wants to cut pensions. He says, "Unions, give me your campaign contributions and I promise I'll do whatever I can." And whatever he can is cut our pensions. That's what he's doing. Proof that he will stop at nothing until he has come up with a plan to cut our pensions is that he just asked Paul Vallis to be his lieutenant governor running mate. Paul Vallis was the architect of school privatization in Chicago. He then went on to New Orleans, Philadelphia, Connecticut to dismantle the public education systems in these places and usher in an era of mass charterization that is based on an absence of democratic control from the community, low-paid, non-unionized teachers, and an over-excessive use of testing.
That's what I believe in. That's what you believe in. And together we'll make the will of the people the law of the land. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
when you look at what we have to actually move our issues forward for our own interest, there's nothing. Pat Quinn is the best of what's available, and he's horrible.
So these candidates have explicitly stated their loyalty to corporate interests and the interests of profit. We need a party that is for us, that is for ordinary Chicagoans, those who are in formal, organized workplaces and those who aren't, and those who are part of the unemployed class who are ultimately the most left behind.
The Democratic Party is the only party that's putting itself out as representing our interests. But the reality is that they have a conflict. They also represent billionaires. They represent the 1%. They represent those who want us to work more for less.
So the big question is, how do we get there? And what do we do now? And always there's a temptation to say, not now, later, later. We have to wait, we have to take the pragmatic choice. That it's just not credible to run a third-party candidate. We'll never win. But I think at some point we have to stake out our own political position, and at some point we have to make the break.
We need to think about the reality that there are two parties in this country, and neither one of them can really represent the working class. You can't have a single party that represents both me and Rahm Emanuel. That's the Democrats. You can't represent Bill Gates and the students and teachers in Chicago public schools. We have different interests. Until we have true representation, I don't see how we're going to actually have power in the electoral arena. Now, the other reality is that we don't have a Labor Party. How do we get there? How do we get to having a party that actually does not associate or affiliate with our bosses that want to cut our wages and make us work more? We can't be in the same party.
I think the movement learned through this experience that try though we might, we can do the street activism, we can march through the city for 3 days, we can go to every last one of their hearings, plead our case, present the data. Schools presented excellent data demonstrating that they have made improvements, that their programs were working, and the city turned a deaf ear to all of that.
Is this the moment when we can think beyond the short term? I'm not going to say that pragmatic politics yields you nothing, but it's a short-term strategy. Are we at the moment when we can start to actually break with the Democrats and form an independent political organization that has the potential to captivate the imaginations and the passion of people in the city? It can actually increase activism and political participation in a wide enough scale so we can actually have a voice on the city council that can feed back into our movements and continue to grow that type of organization.
I think that the movement is just quite genuinely reaching out to say the institutions that exist right now do not work, and we need to change the laws. We need to be in the seat of power. We need an elected school board. Like, our voices need to represent society, not Rahm Emanuel's, not Barbara Byrd Bennett's, not Arnie Duncan's. It needs to be us in there.